You've heard those two words 100 times this month. So here's a fair question. Could you draw one? Not describe it, draw it. Boxes, arrows, what calls what, where it stops. If you can't, that isn't a gap in your attention. The word almost never gets defined for you. It gets demonstrated, and you're left to infer the rest. And a word everybody uses and nobody draws is a word you can be sold anything under. Both of those ship under the same two words right now. They're not the same product, they don't fail the same way, and they aren't worth the same money. By the end of this, you'll have a test. 4 questions, about a minute to answer, and they tell you which end of that line a thing is actually on. 1 boundary. Nothing here recommends a tool or grades a vendor. It's an instrument, and it works on things that haven't shipped yet. A vocabulary complaint isn't worth 12 minutes of anybody's time. This isn't one. The word isn't decoration on those pages. It's doing pricing work. It's what moves a product out of the category you compare on features and into the category you compare on outcomes. A tool gets priced against other tools. Something that does the job for you gets priced against the person who used to do the job. That's a very different number, and the word is what carries you across, which is fine when the thing on the page really is doing the job. The problem is that both of these are allowed to print the same 2 words, and only one of them has a loop in it. And you can't settle that by reading the marketing harder. The marketing is where the ambiguity gets manufactured. So the useful move isn't memorizing a better definition. It's building something you can point at a product and get an answer out of. 4 questions. 3 of them are easy, and 1 of them is the whole thing. We'll build all 4, then find out which one is load-bearing. Question 1. Can it act on the world outside the conversation? Not describe an action. Take 1. Send the message. Edit the file. Hit the endpoint. A model that writes you a beautiful plan and can't execute a single step of it is on the wrong side of that line, however good the plan is. Question 2. Does it go round more than once? 1 pass in, 1 answer out. Done. That's a function call with good manners. The loop is where the interesting behavior lives. Going round means it looks at what came back and decides again with that in hand. The second lap is informed by the first. Question 3. Can it stop itself? Something has to decide the work's finished, and what matters is whether that something sits inside the system or outside it. A cap that stops it after 10 laps is a leash, not a judgment. Both are legitimate engineering. They're not the same claim. And question 4, which is the one that actually separates the 2 ends of that line. Who decides what happens next? Not who wrote the code. At the moment the second step begins, was that step chosen in advance by a person or chosen right then by the model out of what came back? Those 2 pictures are the whole distinction. Top one, the route was drawn first and the model does the work at each stop. Bottom one, the model's holding the map. The first 3 questions tell you what a system can do. The 4th tells you who's in charge while it does it. And that's the one the marketing blurs. There's a reason this word is such a mess, and it isn't sloppiness. 2 of the labs building these systems publish definitions of it, and the definitions don't match. Anthropic's engineering write-up on building agents splits the field in 2. Workflows, in their framing, are systems where large language models and tools are orchestrated through predefined code paths. And the other half, agents, in their framing, are systems where large language models dynamically direct their own processes and tool usage and maintain control over how they accomplish tasks. Line that up against question 4 and it matches exactly. Their whole dividing line is control. Predefined path on one side, the model steering on the other. They describe the agent case as typically just large language models using tools based on environmental feedback in a loop, which is questions 1, 2, and 4 in a single sentence. Now the other one. OpenAI's developer documentation defines it as applications that plan, call tools, collaborate across specialists, and keep enough state to complete multi-step work. Look at the shape of those 2, not the wording. One's a contrast, this as opposed to that. The other's a checklist of capabilities with nothing on the far side of it. A contrast tells you what's excluded, a checklist tells you what's included. Only one of them can fail a product, and that isn't a criticism of either company. It's a difference in what the document is for. So when a product page uses the word loosely, it usually isn't being dishonest. It's using the definition that's easier to satisfy, and both of them are published. Which is exactly why you want the fourth question in your own pocket. It's the one the looser definition never asks. 3 real systems. The honest one goes first, because it's ours and it fails. The engine that produces this channel is a set of routines that draft scripts, run checks, build video, and upload private drafts. Most people would call that an AI agent without pausing. So run it through the 4. Can it act? Yes, plainly. It writes files, runs programs, and talks to a video platform's interface. Does it go round? Inside a single pass, yes. It reads a result, decides, reads again. The pass that wrote this script made 38 separate tool calls before it wrote its first line. Can it stop itself? No. The routine's own instructions say it does 1 reconciliation pass and then exits. Finishing isn't a judgment it makes. It's the end of the script. And question 4. Who decides what happens next? A timer. The operating system wakes the routine every 30 minutes, whether or not there's anything to do. So by the definition, the people who build these things publish. Our own engine is a workflow. The route between the stages was drawn by a person in advance. A model does the work at each stop, and inside a stop, it behaves like an agent. It just doesn't choose the stops. There are also 3 points on that route where it stops and waits for a person, by design. A system that can't get past 3 human gates isn't directing its own process in any meaningful sense, and it runs 16 separate checking programs between stages, each one able to stop the work. Those are guardrails on a fixed path, which is a description of a workflow, not an insult to one. System 2. A coding agent handed a failing test and told to fix it. Acts on the world? It edits files and runs the suite. Goes round? It reads the failure and tries again. Stops itself? The test passing is a condition it can evaluate. And nobody wrote down which files it would open. That last one's the difference you can actually see. The route gets discovered while it runs. It opens a file because of what the previous file said. That one passes. And notice the qualifier, because it matters more than the verdict does. On this task, the same product on a different job might be a workflow. System 3. And it's the shape you've most likely already built. A chain of 5 prompt steps wired together in a builder. It acts. It posts, files, and sends. Does it go round? It goes forward. Step 3 always follows Step 2, and Step 2 never gets a second look at what Step 3 found. Which is also why it's easy to reason about, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's a well-understood, reliable shape. But question 4 answers itself here. The route is the product. Somebody drew those 5 boxes, and the model just fills them in. 2 of 3. And the one most people would have guessed wrong on is the first one, which is ours. So what does the answer actually buy you? 3 things, and they're all things you'd otherwise find out late. First, the shape of the bill. A fixed route costs about the same every time, because it does the same number of steps. A system choosing its own next move doesn't, and that range is a property of the design. Which is why the useful question for anything on the lower path isn't what it costs. It's what it costs on a bad run. Second, how it fails. A fixed route fails at a station, and you know which one. A system that picked its own path fails somewhere along a route that only existed during that run. That isn't a reason to avoid the lower path. It's a reason to demand a transcript from anything on it, and to ask what happens when it makes a choice nobody expected. Third, and this is the one that decides whether you can leave it alone. What makes it stop? On a fixed route, running out of stations. On the other, a judgment, and you're trusting that judgment. Put those 3 together and you aren't buying autonomy. You're buying a trade between what you have to supervise and what you have to specify in advance. The fixed route makes you specify everything up front and lets you stop watching. The other one lets you skip the specification and asks you to keep watching. Every product in this category is somewhere on that beam, which is why the instrument is 4 questions and not 1. You're not sorting things into 2 bins. You're finding out where on that beam a thing sits, so you know which bill you're about to get. 3 ways this test misleads you, and the third one's the one that would embarrass you in a technical conversation. The first, the verdict isn't a property of the product. It's a property of the product doing a particular job. The same tool that chose its own path through a codebase will behave like a fixed pipeline when you hand it a form to fill in. So a sentence like, "That tool is an agent," isn't really a claim about the tool. The second, nothing here says the lower path is better. It's easy to read a test that discriminates as a test that ranks, and this one doesn't. The same page that draws the distinction says that for many applications, Optimizing single model calls with retrieval and in-context examples is usually enough, and that you should add complexity only when it demonstrably improves outcomes. That's the people who sell the complicated version saying it. Most work that people are automating is genuinely a fixed route, and building the other kind for it buys you an unpredictable bill and a harder failure to read. And the third, which is the real limit. Question 4 asks who decides what happens next. But the person who built the system also decided how much room to leave the model. Give it 2 tools and 1 branch, and a system that's architecturally an agent behaves exactly like a fixed route. Give it 30 tools and no cap, and the same code is a different animal. So the test reads the design, not the runtime. 2 deployments of one product can land on opposite ends of that beam, and nothing on a pricing page tells you which one you're getting, which gives you the question to ask a vendor. And it isn't, is this an agent? It's, how many tools it can reach, how many steps it's allowed before something stops it, and who set those 2 numbers. If nobody can answer that, the word on the page is decoration, which is the honest summary of what you're getting. 4 questions you can answer off a documentation page won't tell you whether something works. They tell you what kind of thing it is, and therefore, which question to ask next. Short version, can it act on something outside the conversation? If it can only describe the action, it's a writing tool with ambition. Does it go round more than once, with the second lap informed by the first? Forward through 5 fixed steps isn't round. Can it decide it's finished? A counter running out is a leash. Both are fine engineering, they're just different claims. And who decides what happens next? If the route was drawn before the run, you've got a workflow with a model in it, which is most of what ships under the other word. And whichever side a thing lands on, what you're choosing isn't autonomy. It's whether you pay in specification up front or supervision afterwards. So next time those 2 words show up on a page, don't argue about whether it deserves them. Ask the 4th question and see whether the page can answer it at all. Most pages can't. That's the finding, and it costs you about a minute to get it. The next useful thing you can do is run the 4 questions against whichever tool's already open on your machine, and notice which question its documentation goes quiet on. Until then, stay in the loop.